Srikant, it's an honor and a privilege to host this Q&A session with you. You are leading one of the most transformational projects for the country when it comes to geospatial data. I'd love to hear your views on where is India going, and because this is a global platform today, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are we thinking about and what are some of the key programs that you believe are going to be transformative.
So, Ankit, as you know, till 2022, this was a regulated sector, which means there was very little action happening. Geospatial data was available only to government users. For anyone outside, it was illegal to access, use, or distribute this data. I think the whole vision, therefore, is can we use geospatial data and technologies to drive economic prosperity for the country? That's the overarching vision. So in order to make that happen, the aim is to say government has a lot of geospatial data. Private sector can also bring in some geospatial data, but can we put together a tech platform through which this data can be made easily accessible and available to private sector and startups so that they can come and create a variety of applications which drive change on the ground. I think all of us have seen the transformation that's happened with UPI, how data can drive change in the economy and in our society. So the similar idea here, make the data available to private sector and startups, let them go literally wild to create a range of applications that can create magic on the ground. That's the overarching vision, actually.
Awesome. And Srikant, there is also another program that the government is leading and your center is leading, which is mapping and creating digital twins for cities. Any thoughts you want to share, or what are we thinking there?
So digital twins is one of the, so to say, themes or areas where geospatial applications will be at work. And so the whole idea is that if you create a digital twin for a city, you can not only do 3D mapping, but track on a dynamic real-time basis what's happening. For example, take the rains in Bombay. While compared to the city I live in, Delhi, Bombay has a much better drainage system because it was planned for it. But even that drainage system is not equipped to handle the amount of water that you're getting. How do you kind of anticipate that, predict that, monitor it in real time? I think that's just one application. Then, of course, things on encroachments inside a city, or if you take a city, a holy city like Varanasi and Ayodhya, how are the crowds building up? Can you do better traffic management? So the whole idea is that if we can use digital twin as a basis to run a variety of uses, which makes life better for us in the cities we live in. So therefore, digital twins is one of the outcomes or applications that is expected to be in big play once our basic ground infrastructure is in place from a digital geospatial standpoint.
That's really amazing, Srikant. And when we talk about digital twins, our cities and our infrastructure is growing at an unprecedented pace. What do you think will be the frequency at which we will have to keep refreshing this data so that we can do, like what you said, with great accuracy as well?
Right. So I want to step back and talk about some of the recent, I've been part of some meetings where proposals were presented by private sector players to say, I want to do digital mapping for so-and-so city or so-and-so part of the city. But when you looked at it closely, you realize that it was a one-time, a lot of people have kind of wrongly understood digital twin to be a one-time mapping exercise. In some cases, they even trying to interpret a 2D mapping exercise as digital twin, which is obviously totally wrong. For a digital twin to be really a digital twin, it needs to be 3D. There needs to be sensors or other ways by which real-time data can come in. So that's one part of it. But as cities expand, as you rightly said, at this point of time, I don't think we've formulated any thoughts in that regard. But the pace at which cities are growing, I would say every 2 years, you probably need to refresh that city's data and to ensure that you captured the growth of the city on the outskirts or even within a city. So I would say at least once in 2 years, but we're a long way from getting there, unfortunately. Even the starting point, I think, is we have to interpret digital twin correctly so that you're at least geared on the ground with not just a 3D map, but with sensors and other things which can give you real-time data as well.
And coming back to Dronagiri, Srikant, there are going to be data sets for various spectrums that will be available or will have to be made available. What are some of the use cases you are envisaging, like some examples that you believe will be meaningful as an outcome, or what do you aspire for the output to look like?
Yeah. So, as you know, we're just in the process of completing pilot projects in 5 districts. And here we pick 3 sectors. Agriculture is one, transportation, logistics is the second one, and livelihood and skilling is the third one. But I think what we've seen, obviously, we started small because we wanted to start quickly rather than wait endlessly. So we started small. And we've seen amazing results in agriculture, as you know, in just one district, Varanasi, where 26,000 farmers benefited from better advice as a result of geospatial data. I think the outcome is 15% improvement in wheat yield during the Rabi season and an 8% reduction in cost of production. That's an amazing outcome. So if we can just replicate this agriculture success story across the country, can you imagine the impact if you're able to get 10 to 15% yield improvement across the country? That is one amazing outcome. So I'm going to break down the possibilities in 3 broad sectors. One is in the government sphere. Second is what I would say, and the second would be in terms of what can be done by private sector, and third by what can be done by startups. So in the government sector, if you look at some of the other, agriculture is one area where second is infrastructure. I mean, we have an amazing pace at which we're building our highways, and we have cost overruns on highways because of wrong road alignments, actually. So we've anticipated that if we are able to just reduce that road misalignment by even 10%, we can save close to 6,000 crores every year, for example. That's one example. Then property tax. We have an abysmal collection rate. We collect only 0.2% of our GDP as property tax. Even a country like Philippines and Thailand collects close to 0.5%. So if we move up from 0.2 to 0.4%, that's 6,000 crores of additional income for our local bodies, for example. So these are areas, examples on the government side. If you move to the private sector and startups, if you saw what we achieved in Varanasi, I think the benefit, while it accrues to the farmers, but a big private sector company like ITC was involved, who could procure better quality wheat for their Ashirvad atta. It benefited small fertilizer sellers who could sell fertilizers in a targeted manner. So a startup selling fertilizers benefited. So I can see that if you take infrastructure, agriculture, transportation, disaster management, across all these areas, I think there is benefit for the government, benefit for the private sector, benefit for the startups. And that is where the outcome will be. I mean, I would take just delivery, for example, with e-commerce being such a booming sector. Our e-commerce delivery companies struggle to deliver in rural areas because they don't have accurate addresses, they don't have accurate village roads, etc. Now, if you make accurate addresses and accurate village roads available, you can certainly improve your rural coverage by 100%, actually. And that, to me, will be a boom to e-commerce, for example. So those are some of the things I'm excited about as the possibilities that you can get.
Oh, that's amazing. And Srikant, as I am aware, a lot of the data collection or the data available with the government today is satellite-based data that is being provided for the Operation Dronagiri. What is your view on how drone data can be plugged in? What have you seen in terms of evidences on ground that could unlock another layer of intelligence for use cases?
Right. So, if you look at the three areas where drones can potentially play a role going forward, one is, and these relate to the three kinds of initiatives that are anticipated. One is we're rebuilding the foundational layer. For example, the ortho-rectified imagery of India is very outdated. We have 3 million square kilometers, out of which less than 15% of that we have a high resolution imagery, for example. The remaining 85% of the country still needs to be mapped out for high resolution ortho-rectified imagery. Now, whether satellites get used for that, whether you fly planes for that, whether you fly drones for that, I think that is up for completely open at this point of time. There may be some preconceived notions that satellites are better, but I think if drone companies or drone service providers or drone as a service companies like yours are able to make a business case which says that, look, I can deliver this to you at better quality, better speed, better value, I think nothing rules out the possibility of drones coming in. So this is at the foundational layer. The second one is, on top of this foundational layer, there'll be lots of government and public sector projects, and you've seen the Naksha project running right now with Department of Land Records. Now, projects like that will come up from every ministry, actually. Some will last for a year, some projects will last for 2 years. Once again, I think drones have to make a case that they can do a better job. And third would be private sector projects. Because an agri company like ITC or a logistics company like Delivery will come and do stuff on the ground, and they will again need drones. I think the important thing is the challenge for companies like IdeaForge and other drone companies is to get a perception change, because in the past, I think for wrong reasons, people have either perceived drones as toys, which you see at weddings or cricket matches, or you see them fighting wars. But the fact that they are a great possible alternative from a mapping standpoint, from a data provision standpoint, I think that's what the drone companies will need to achieve. And if you're very innovative and think out of the box, I think you should be able to achieve that, is my view, actually.
Absolutely. And Srikant, in terms of types of data sets, do you believe that there are certain types of data sets that are not available today, which, if made available, could could deliver these outcomes better?
Yeah. So, for example, I spoke about ORI, ortho-rectified imagery. Now, the fact that it's not available across the country, and although under the National Geospatial Mission, which the Honorable Finance Minister approved this year, it will be implemented over the next 6 years, let's say. So it's going to take that much time for the entire country to be done fully. So during this period, obviously, there will be short-term requirements. And therefore, that is an area where you could step in. Or you saw that as an example in Varanasi, where under Operation Dronagiri, high resolution maps were available only to a certain extent all with us. And therefore, you nicely stepped in to help, and you said, look, you're going to provide high resolution imagery. You offered to fly your drones. And therefore, there will be lots of gaps, definitely in the short term, which you can, because you have the ability to do things much faster. Because even the country's satellite capacity, Earth observation satellite capacity, we're woefully short. All the new initiatives that are coming up in the private sector will see results only in a 2, 3, 4 year time frame. So I think in the short term, you have the ability to really scale up because you're both a manufacturer and with a data provision mindset. So I think there's an immense opportunity for you in the short term to grab this. And in the medium to long term, if you can innovate further, you will prove to be a worthy competitor on an ongoing basis to satellite as a source or planes flying as a source, actually.
And, we have seen that a lot of challenges come due to unavailability of certain assets, be it because of regulatory permissions or due to environmental conditions. Have you seen that kind of gap or that kind of challenge in the data sources available today?
Uh, I can't think of any tangible example that have visibly encountered in the last 1 year. You do run into a situation where because of cloud cover, satellite is not able to capture an image. Those kind of things come in, but then you have to balance it with the fact that for a drone to fly, you need to go through your own permission sequence from civil aviation authorities. So therefore, I think any kind of flying to capture data has a set of practical challenges associated with them. So I would not put too much weight on that particular aspect. I think for drones providers to succeed, there are two areas where I think you'll need to innovate actually. One is, and I think it's mostly to do with the business model more than anything else. Can you do consumption linked pricing? I think we have a great analogy. Go back many years ago to India's telecom infrastructure providers. When Airtel, Vodafone, and others first came in, they used to invest in capex upfront. But then IBM and Airtel struck a deal where it became consumption linked pricing. I think a more interesting option for you would be outcome linked pricing. I think for me, Google pay per click is a great example of how they've disrupted the whole media industry, where you say, pay me only when you click and come to my website. If you can innovate and come up with a truly radical, disruptive model for outcome linked pricing, I think that is what will give you breakthroughs. I think if drone companies like yours can think out of the box in terms of business model, you will really make a breakthrough. Maybe not so much with the government, but with the private sector, because the government may still want to buy the drones or to engage you on a project, but outcome linked pricing with what will drive consumption in the private sector, which is where I'm hoping that a lot of the data consumption will go up in the years to come, actually.
That's a great thought, Shrikant, and just to sort of quickly make you aware that one of the key objectives of our initiative as Drone as a Service is to follow this advice itself. Um, I just thought it'll be useful to also look at the data side of the house, right? Now that we have a lot of data, what are the kind of challenges that you believe we are facing on the data side of the house? One is making the data available, and the second is data consumption.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a third challenge actually, which I call data interoperability, in the sense that when we aggregated or source data from different government agencies, they come in different shapes and sizes. Partly because we've not had standards in the past with respect to how the data should be, what the data structure should be. So I think while work is happening on, so there is work happening in BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards is involved. In some cases, they're adopting global standards. Some cases, they're creating Indian standards. So the attempt in the months and years to come will be to ensure that all state and central government agencies which generate data through various projects, they follow the same set of standards, and that becomes part of their procurement process. So if data can't talk to each other, we'll never be able to kind of put it on one platform and make it consumable. I think that's the second challenge that's the big challenge that we want to address, other than the two things we spoke about that you mentioned actually.
Absolutely, and in terms of analytics, are you are you seeing that analytics is an area where there is a gap that needs to be plugged in?
Yeah. So there are obviously India being a home of software and maths geniuses, there are lots of talented startups and companies which are good at analytics. But I think what needs to be so one is they obviously are busy doing their own thing. How do we get more of them involved working on geospatial data? That's one aspect. But we want to institutionalize this. To let me expand on that a bit. For our Operation Dronagiri, we created what is actually a pilot prototype in the form of the geospatial data sharing interface. But if you look at the policy, it envisages something a lot more ambitious. The National Geospatial Data Registry and a unified geospatial interface, which is a massive registry where data from all sources flows in, public and private sector, and there's a geospatial interface through which you can browse the catalog, play around in a sandbox, and then get data through APIs. Now, in that context, one of the things we're going to do is to ensure that the great user experience, obviously, but more important, we also want to try and work very closely with other initiatives within the government. For example, there is PM Gati Shakti, which already pulls in a lot of data which are relevant for the infrastructure sector. So rather than everyone trying to reinvent the wheel, we're trying to ensure that we have synergies so that the much bigger data registry. And now, in that whole technology infrastructure, we want to bring in tool providers and analytics providers who are available on the same platform. So a user, it could be a private sector or a startup which wants to use the data, does not just have to take raw data. They also have the option of taking some tools and certain analytics from the platform, which are not provided by the government or anyone centrally, but it's literally like a marketplace or a platform that we've envisaged actually. So definitely a big role for analytics and analytics providers. I'm going to add one more layer to that. If we can put so much data together, it can also become the basis for some foundational data for AI models that people want to create, because at the end of the day, there's so much data available, it can be very valuable from an AI foundational model standpoint also.
And this data infrastructure, Srikant, presently we are obviously thinking of a cloud platform that can host it. But to get data from various disparate sources, what kind of challenges are you facing? Like, are you facing issues with the siloification of data, availability offline, etc.?
Yeah. So I just want to clarify your first point. The data will reside with the original owners. What will be available is a registry where there's a catalog available, metadata is available, users can browse through it, and when you ping a specific API, or you say, I want data A, B, X, and Y, the API call goes straight to the original data owner from where the data comes in. But the challenge we see at this point of time, it is siloed. The data is not interoperable. So silos is a question of following up actually. Policy mandates that they give the data, but it requires a lot of follow-up. But the standards and interoperability is what we're trying to fix.
Oh, that's awesome. So Srikant, since we have audience from across the world, what would be your view of how what we are doing in India can translate globally, and what would be your message for the forum here? That's my last question to you.
The message would be that we have big ambitions. I think as a country, we've shown that we can build scalable digital public infrastructure, whether Aadhaar or whether UPI. And we believe that with our geospatial data infrastructure, we will do the same thing, which is a massively scalable platform, probably not done elsewhere in the world. And hopefully we can share our experience with the rest of the world. That's what I hope we can achieve.
Thank you so much, Srikant, for sharing that vision. I, for one, am extremely pumped about how we are thinking about unlocking the potential of geospatial information and data. And as a drone business, I think your advice and opportunities are both a great source of inspiration for us to follow up and build new capabilities for scaled up use cases. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Ankit.
It's great to have you on this platform.